Hello, lovely people. We are live in the workroom of the crazy author. Thank you all for coming for a little last live stream of 2023 for the Waystone, my Patreon community. This live stream on YouTube is actually public. That's not by accident. I am going to be doing a bit of a retrospective about the Patreon community and a little bit of a um, forward-thinking plan thing for 2024 to let you all know what's going on, where we are, and what you have to expect. First off, I just want you all to notice this lovely little gift I got from one of my family members. It's just a box, so you can put little knickknacks in, like pens and glasses and things in the shape of a typewriter. I think it's lovely. Just love it. It's perfectly, I think. Anyway, uh, welcome again to the Writer's Laboratory here at the Waystone. My name is Nicholas Kotar. I am, if you don't already know, I don't know what you're doing here. I am an epic fantasy writer, and I write stories inspired by Russian fairy tales. And here inside our Patreon community, which we affectionately call the Waystone, this is the place where the ideas spring forth from the head of Zeus, as it were. This is the place where I tinker. This is the place where I try out different things, some of which work, some of which don't. And all you poor people get to be the guinea pigs for all of it, both the stuff that works and the stuff that doesn't. 2023 was an interesting year. I did a larger review of 2023 just a little while ago. You can see it in my YouTube, on my YouTube channel, if that's something that's interesting to you. This is a shorter and more focused video that's going to be where we're going to talk specifically about the Patreon community that has been such a huge and wonderful part of my author business for the past several years. In 2023, it really clicked for me, the idea of where to fit the Patreon community, how it fits in the larger scheme of things, and really the reason why it should exist. Now, that's not to say that 2023 was a good year for Patreon. It was very, very up and down. We started out with a long hiatus from the book club, which was probably the most which was probably the feature inside my Patreon community that was most interesting to my members. But it was difficult for me because of various family issues that I will not get into here to commit to the time that was most comfortable for everybody. That has since changed. We ended up moving house, moving to a new place, and it's become more possible for me to do work during my evening times, which is the time when most of the book club members are available to come and chat about books that they love. So we're probably going to be returning. We are returning. We have already returned to the book club. As you all know, we've been reading the Raven Sun series for the past few months. And other than December being December and a general disaster area, which tends to happen to me, it's been a pretty good return. And I have high hopes for it for the future. But let me not skip ahead too far. One of the nice things about Patreon, it's an opportunity for me to really try out different ideas, new things that I haven't tried before. And one of the really nice things that happened during 2023 was an audience and an enthusiasm for short fiction. Now, I had committed to a certain number of short stories by the end of 2023. That number was nowhere near reached. I ended up writing 3 short stories instead of the 10 to 12 that I was hoping to. I'm not going to put a concrete number for 2024, but I will say that the experience of writing short fiction and both the writing of it and what it has unlocked and done for me within my sort of creativity and how it aligns very well with the writing of my novels is something that surprised me a lot. In particular, there was a short story that I wrote called "The Healer and the Beast," which is a short story that happens between volumes 1 and 2 of the Raven Sun series, that was made into a podcast episode uh, by a fellow author named Corinne Norton. She has a wonderful podcast called "Finding Fantasy Reads," where she and her brother read short stories written by new and especially independently published fantasy writers. I was very happy to provide one of my stories for it. And in Corinne's reading, the story really came alive and made me realize that there is something about writing short fiction that is important for me as a writer because it focuses me, it forces me to really hone in on what works and what doesn't, and it allows me the opportunity to experiment with um, character, with voice, with plot in ways that are more difficult to do on the larger novella or novel length works because you have to commit to something and you have to stick to it. You can't really experiment too much. So I'm going to be doing more short fiction in 2023. As part of that, I'm most likely going to be, if all things go well, uh, going to a special anthology workshop in Las Vegas, which would require me to write 6 short stories in 6 months. That was the format at the last anthology workshop I went to in 2019. So I'm assuming it's going to be something similar. So those of you who are at the $10 tier can expect to have more short fiction from me next year. And I'm not going to put a concrete number on it because things happen, but that is definitely a point of focus and attention for me in the coming year. The really nice, the nice other thing about it is that I realized that the experience of having a community inside Patreon for people who really like the things that I do was a very freeing experience for me, as opposed to something that is stultifying, which I thought it would be. For the longest time, I'd been pushing Patreon away and kind of thinking of it as an obligation. But there's something really invigorating about having a community, small or large, of people that come together uh, out of a love for the same kind of thing. And especially if that kind of thing is storytelling, it's quite lovely. The kinds of conversations that I have with people in this space, the freedom that I have to share thoughts, ideas, inspiration with you all is quite wonderful. And I've started to move throughout 2023 in a direction where Patreon is the place where I go to first when it comes to all new ideas, new launches, new books, new stories, new fairy tales, new artwork. And I'm definitely leaning into that even more in 2024. Hi, Brittany. Good to see you. Brittany loves short fiction, reading and writing it. Writing has been a huge for me, even flash fiction. Yeah. Nathan and Brittany. Yes, you guys. It's good to see you both here. So I thought, without further ado, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over what we've done in 2023, is in particular what the tiers are inside Patreon, uh, especially for those of you who are not members of it, so you know what's going on, and I'll talk about how those tiers are going to be reflected in 2024. So in 2023, we ended up changing a lot of what I did. I ended up retiring a few of my tiers and also refocusing some of the attention that I had on and moving around some things and removing some things. I ended up getting rid of merch almost completely. I am keeping periodical merch at the $20 level, but I'm no longer integrating it with the uh, Patreon um, with Patreon's own program for quarterly merch. There's a reason for that. I'll talk about that in a second. But in any case, the tiers as we had in 2023 were the $2 tier, which is access to the book club, access to all live streams, and access to the Discord server plus occasional surprise gifts. So that's like the base. Obviously, I have the most people at that tier. Not surprising. The $5 tier is everything at the $2 tier plus every new book I publish in ebook format is automatically sent before it becomes available for sale for everybody at the $5 level and above. At the $10 level, you receive everything at the 2 and the 5 level, plus occasional short stories that are inspired by the Russian fairy tales that I translate and tell. Now, I have been telling these more and more recently, uh, even though the momentum that we had with me doing live storytelling earlier in the year kind of fizzled out for a variety of reasons. But giving live storytelling sessions throughout the course of a month is definitely something that I'm going to be doing in 2024. I'll talk about that in a second. So the $10 level is specifically like it's the level that people who want to read my short fiction, they focus in on that one. At the $20 level is everything at the previous levels, plus occasional merch and free audiobook codes for every new audiobook I publish. Those of you who are interested in audio, you should know that there are going to be 3 new audiobooks available from me in the early months of 2024. So um, if that's something, if you love to listen on audio, you want to look at the $20 tier, because in the first few months of 2024, you're going to get a lot of stuff from me. I have things lined up that I purposely did not act on in 2023, which for me is very difficult to do. As soon as I get something, I want to share it immediately. But this December has been hard, as Decembers often are. And so I decided to push it to 2024. As a result, I have a kind of a backlog of things to share with you, which is a much more exciting feeling than the sense that usually that I have of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? It's the beginning of the week, it's the beginning of the month. I have to figure something out, right? So we're going to be retiring the $50 a month tier, which has never been popular, and I think is just basically a kind of in between tier that nobody really wants. I am keeping the $100 a month tiers right now. That means 6 one-on-one sessions with me for the craft of writing specifically. I am also introducing several slots for people who want to have help in the publishing business side of things. That's also part of the $100 a month. And I still have one slot available for the big one, the $250 a month slot tier, which, in addition to all the things that everybody else gets, receives a quarterly mystery box of gifts picked and packed by yours truly. Nathan has tried that one out. He lasted much longer than I thought he would, but that one's a really fun one. I enjoy making those boxes very much. Everybody in 2024, the tiers are going to remain largely the same, except I'm getting rid of the $50 tier. What does that mean? In addition to the things that I've mentioned, what you can expect is new live storytelling from me. So Russian fairy tales told for the first time ever, at least once a month, preferably twice a month. And I'm going in full hog into story analysis in 2024. Those story analyses will happen once or twice a month, depending on the month. All members of the Waystone will receive early episodes of In a Certain Land, which is going to go into a winter hiatus until February, where in February we'll start having new episodes again. We're going to finish off with the final third new episode probably next week, and then we're going to take a break so that we can stock up on some new episodes for 2024. You also get regular update posts from me, which happen every once in a while. You get special gifts from me, which happen every once in a while. And in addition, what you're going to have access to is live tapings of interviews with authors, which are going to include some really wonderful authors, including Christopher Rocchio again in 2024, Tim Powers, if I can get him pinned down. He already said yes, but it's hard for me to get him to commit to a date, which is going to be really exciting. And Vesper Stamper is going to come back, as well as several other authors throughout the course of the year. This is going to be part of a new podcast. So the Fantasy for Our Time podcast, as it has been for the last 2 years or so, is going to be retired. And I'm going to be rolling in that old podcast into a new podcast called the Wood Between the Worlds podcast. It's going to be the official podcast of the new publishing house that I am launching in February of 2024. And that's the place where you're going to be able to hear analyses from me about current and classic fantasy media and sci-fi media, as well as interviews with some wonderful authors in the space. I'm also leaning into the book club in 2024, and we're going to be returning to monthly book club Zoom get-togethers, which we went away from in 2023. I think we should come back to them in 2024, and I'm going to be committing to that starting in February. So that's something hopefully that will be exciting. Some things you can expect to see from me in 2024 as special gifts, new artwork from various artists. So I'm going to be commissioning artists throughout 2024 with the intention of eventually finding someone that I'm going to be happy with to do the illustrated edition of the complete Raven Sun series, which will be released in 2024 as a special edition, special book club edition. And I haven't decided exactly how this is going to look, but there are going to be illustrations as part of this, in addition to the extra stories that I'm going to be writing and have been writing over the past few months. So that's all still happening. It was bumped from the end of this year into 2024. Probably best for everybody. Certainly best for my sanity. So that's what's going on in Patreon land. So we're going to be reducing some of the overall offerings and leaning into the things that I feel are the strongest offerings here. fiction, stories, that's the real bedrock of what's going on here. So live storytellings are going to be happening regularly. Analyses of those lives of those stories that come out in a in a certain land podcast, those are going to be a regular part of the Patreon community. Short fiction, both sort of side quests and adjacent stories within the Raven Sun universe, as well as completely original fiction that just I write randomly. Both things are going to be part of 2024's offerings, and a renewed commitment to the book club. So practically, what this is going to look like is that there's going to be a lot of video coming from me. I've one of the nice things about 2023 has basically shown that you guys like me on video, and I like to be on video as well. So I'm going to be putting in a little bit of money to spruce up this situation over here, make the lighting a little bit better because at this point, what's going on here is a little bit too bright and too obnoxious. I'm going to do a little bit of mood stuff, and I'm going to work on basically the YouTube channel becoming the go-to place for video content, but the Patreon community being the first spot where that stuff premieres, and then it'll go from here into the YouTube community after that. So that's what we have to look forward to. All you writers who used to get more direct writerly advice and writerly type stuff in the Patreon community from me. Now, this doesn't include the 100 a month coaching, which is still a part of Patreon, but my Patreon community in particular on the Discord and inside the community itself, the writing portion, like the stuff for writers, it's been moved. So the Patreon is going to be all about fiction. It's going to be all about my stories, all about Russian fairy tales, my translations of them, and the analyses of these stories, and getting to the nitty gritty of them and understanding them and diving deep into what makes these stories so fantastic. If you're a writer, I'm going to be doing stuff for writers in the Story Hearth, my new online community for writers. We've just reached our 20th member, which is really exciting, and it's a steadily growing community of some really wonderful writers who are all inspiring each other to do excellent work, and it's inspiring to me to see them bring each other up, which is exactly what I was hoping would happen. That's over at the Story Hearth. Check it out if you haven't already. So that's the short little update for you all about Patreon land, or the Waystone as we call it. 2023 was good but chaotic. 2024 is all about nurturing the ecosystem of the author, and Patreon is going to be like the soil from which everything comes up. This is the place where the deep thoughts happen. This is the place where the research is shared. This is the place where I go deep into the how, the why, the insider stuff. This is the place where we all talk about how much we love stories, where we read stories together. The book club is not only going to be about my books, we're also going to be reading other books in between the Raven Sun series. And eventually we're going to be returning to what we've been doing before, and that's really breaking down what makes the fantasy and sci-fi genre great. So I hope you're as excited as I am for 2024. All that being said, the reality of it is that I need to take a break. So my family and I are, God willing, going to Belarus in the early days of the new year. Now, this is more tricky than you might think. It used to be simply a matter of getting on a plane and taking a few layovers and eventually arriving over in Belarus. But because of the war in Ukraine, no Western airlines fly to Belarus anymore. So either you go through a very circuitous route, either through Turkey or even as far as United Arab Emirates or other places of that nature, which is very expensive. Or you take a land route by landing in Western Europe, and then traveling either by bus, train, or car to get over the border, which is heavily patrolled these days. No matter where you're entering, whether it's Poland or Latvia or Lithuania, there is no way of getting into Russia at all right now. All of those borders are closed effectively. So we're not entirely sure how we're going to get there, but it looks like things are falling into place. And all of January is going to be um, a time for the well to be filled. It's a time for me to go and read, for me to finish up a few translation projects that need to be finished before we start the new year from a business perspective in February. So I'm very excited by that. It's an opportunity to be with family. It's an opportunity to spend time with my kids. An opportunity to read a lot. It's an opportunity to open up my journals and kind of just let thoughts come out as they will. It's an opportunity to do research. It's an opportunity to simply be and not seem to be, as I think I have seemed to be for a long time now, especially for the past few months. The theme for 2023 was fruitfulness. It should have been wintering. So the way I thought about fruitfulness was it's a time to let the roots grow deep so that the fruit that comes out can be sweet and good. But the problem was that my brain understood the word fruitfulness to mean doing a lot of things. So I never actually leaned deeply into that, letting the roots grow, taking care of the soil, nourishing the ecosystem. So we're doing that in January so that with a renewed sense of the importance of the balance of the individual parts of that ecosystem, that everything has to feed each other and that there can't be too much of one thing or too much of another. That's what we're going forward with in 2024. There's a lot of stuff happening, a lot of new books. I'm publishing at least 4 new books in 2024. Um, so it's gonna be fun. But in order to get out of the gate full speed ahead, I need a bit of a break. So it's been a lovely 2023 with all of you. We're gonna have one more get together. It's not going to be a live stream. It's going to be a book club get together, hopefully next week. I'll let you know about that inside Patreon. But for those of you who aren't interested in the book club, this is me saying ta-ta for the end of December and all of January, and I will see you all again in February of 2024, if the world is still around then. But yeah, hope you have a nice rest of your week. Merry Christmas to those who are celebrating, and I hope you all have a wonderful time with family, with friends, taking some time for those that you love, some time for yourself, some time to replenish that heart of yours and to refill that creative well. Don't forget to do it, because once you go dry, bad things start happening. Hope you all are doing well. See you soon.